The Neptune Project, a First Chapter Friday read aloud video and author interview with Amanda Ziba, the word nerd, and author Polly Holyoke. Summer is a great time to be reading books about the ocean. This month I'll be reading 4 of them: The Last Mapmaker, Deep Blue, The Neptune Project, and my very own book, Breaking the Surface. Be sure to come back each week in June for a new installment. Hi, my name's Amanda Ziba. Welcome to my channel, Learning with the Word Nerd, and another First Chapter Friday video. This week I'm going to be reading to you from The Neptune Project by Polly Holyoke, and then we're going to have a chance to interview the author, so make sure you stick around for that. This book is the third in my summer reading series of oceanic adventures, so if you've missed the other books, make sure that you go back and check them out. But for now, let's read the back blurb on the book so you can know what this story is all about. Nere has never understood why she feels so much more comfortable and confident swimming with the dolphins that her mother studies than hanging out with her classmates on land. But everything falls into place when Nere learns that she is one of a group of kids who, unbeknownst to them, have been genetically altered to survive in the ocean. These products of the Neptune Project are given a mission to build a better future under the sea, safe from the dangers on land. But there are some very big problems. No one asked Nere if she wanted to be a science experiment. The other Neptune kids aren't exactly the friendliest bunch, and in order to reach the safe haven of the Neptune colony, Nere and her fellow mutates must swim through hundreds of miles of dangerous waters, relying only on their wits, dolphins, and each other to evade terrifying undersea creatures and a government that will stop at nothing to capture the Neptune kids, dead or alive. Fierce battles and daring escapes abound as Nere and her friends race to safety in this action-packed aquatic adventure. It's the first in a series of 3. Chapter 1. I wake to an urgent tap at my window. My heart thudding, I sit bolt upright in bed. The night is hot and still. I push my sweaty hair from my face and try to ignore the twist of fear in my gut. No one brings good news at this late hour. I slip from my bed and peer cautiously through my window. Cam is standing outside, his dark eyes shadowed. The Marine Guard just sank Jack's boat. We need the dolphins to look for survivors. Are you in? Jillian will kill me if she finds out. My mother hates smugglers, but some of them are Cam's friends. Please? They might still be alive. Fine, I sigh, just a minute. I step into my boat shoes but don't bother to change out of my faded black shorts and my brother's old brown shirt. Dark clothes are good for tonight's work. I wiggle through the small window head first. When I get stuck, Cam pulls me the rest of the way. Thanks, Nere. I owe you one, Cam says as he steadies me on my feet. His hands are rough from hauling lines and nets on his father's fishing boat. The silver light from a slim crescent moon hangs and highlights his black curly hair and the strong planes of his face. I want to tell him that he doesn't owe me anything, but he's already turning away and jogging down the steep winding path that leads to the dolphin dock and fishing pier in the harbor below. I can feel the day's relentless heat radiating from the dirt and gravel beneath my feet. Let's take Jillian's Zode, I tell Cam breathlessly as I hurry to catch up with him. He looks back at me like I'm crazy. There's no wind tonight, I explain. It will take forever to get there in your sailboat. Jillian will kill us if she finds out. Cam flashes me a grin. Well, I say panting, it's nice to know I'll have company when my mother murders me. At the next turn of the path, my chest starts to tighten and burn. Please, not now, I think. This is the worst possible moment for my useless lungs to fail me. I'm sorry, I need to go slower, I have to admit after 3 more steps. Cam stops and looks at me searchingly. Are you all right? Yes, I grit my teeth. I just have to walk this last stretch. I'll run ahead and get the Zode ready. I need to call Mariah. Where did Jack's boat go down? Just off Reynard Point. Then Cam's away, racing down the final switchback with a healthy speed that makes me jealous. I breathe slowly and carefully, trying to relax the muscles in my chest. I have an inhaler in my pocket that I can use if I have a full-scale lung attack, but I only have 3 doses of the precious lung med left. I reach out with my mind to contact the dolphins. I hope they aren't too far away. Mariah. A boat just sank. The crew may need our help. Mariah's mind stirs at my touch. We heard the explosions up the coast from us. Their boat went down near the point where the bat rays like to feed. We will meet you there. On our way, she promises. Walking fast as my burning lungs will allow, I finally reach the dolphin dock. My heart pounds even faster as I study the harbor. I see no sign of movement on the fishing boats tied up at the pier. The stone cottages on the hillside above us are dark and still. The hard-working fisher folk of Goleta obey our government's curfew. Only smugglers and desperate friends of smugglers are reckless enough to defy it. Stepping down into my mother's Zode, I see Cam has already disconnected its electric motor from the solar panels on the dock. The batteries should give us plenty of juice to reach Reynard Point and get back safely, assuming we don't run into any armed Marine Guard vessels somewhere along the way. Cam switches on the silent motor. Just as we pull away from the dock, a small shape hurtles through the air to land in the middle of the boat. The Zode rocks from the weight of the new passenger. Cam's little brother, Robry, grins at me, his teeth a flash of white in the moonlight. "Hi, Nere." "Hi yourself," I say. Cam points the boat back toward the dock. This is not happening, Squidface. There's no way you're coming with us. I can handle the boat while you two look for survivors with the dolphins. You know you can use an extra hand, especially if someone's hurt. Robry's right, and Cam knows it. All right, he agrees after a long moment, but if we see any sign of Marine Guard, you're going to jump overboard, head for shore, and hide until this is over. I promise, Robry says with uncustomary meekness. But he grins at me as he crawls forward. He perches himself on the bow pontoon, his big feet just skimming the surface of the water. I settle myself on the middle pontoon, facing backward so I can talk to Cam. I relax a little as we leave the harbor and surge ahead across the smooth sea. The only sound I hear is the slap of small waves against the side of the Zode. I love being on the water. The burning in my lungs eases as I breathe in the damp sea air. Despite the light from the crescent moon, the stars shine like little bits of precious ice in the clear black sky. "Tell me exactly what happened to Jack," I say to Cam. "He and his crew were coming in to unload their cargo at the sea cave just beyond the point," Cam replies, even as he keeps an eye out for other vessels. "The Marine Guard was waiting for them and blew their boat right out of the water. Jack barely had time to tell me their location before his radio went dead." I can hear how worried he is about his friend. They haven't been as close since Jack fell in with the smugglers, but Cam is one of the most loyal people I know. He's probably fine. Jack has more lives than a cat, and he knows this coast as well as anyone, I say, trying to comfort him. "I think he's already used up most of those lives," Cam says shortly. "The Marine Guard almost caught him last month. I tried to tell Jack he would be headed for a prison camp if they arrested him, but he wouldn't listen." I hear the gust of a dolphin breathing through its blowhole. The next moment, Sokia leaps out of the air behind the Zode, and water cascading off her back in a shimmering silver arc. She lands a little ahead of us on her side, sending up a big splash that douses both Robry and me. The night is so hot, I relish the cool seawater on my skin. "She's such a show-off." Robry grins and wipes the water out of his eyes. Sokia circles around to swim behind us. "A shark came and we scared it away," she informs me smugly. "I chased an octopus from the rocks, and it tasted delicious." Sokia is Mariah's youngest daughter. She's only 5, which means she's still a dolphin teenager. Sometimes I think she's more like a demanding sister to me than a marine mammal I'm supposed to be training. One by one, the rest of the pod catches up with us until 12 Pacific white-sided dolphins are coursing through the sea beside the Zode. They bombard my mind with happy images of what they've been doing since I swam with them this afternoon. But only Sokia and her brother Denzel and their mother Mariah seem to possess the ability to use human speech to communicate with me. "Do you hear any boat engines?" I ask Mariah. "The sea is quiet," she reassures me. Still, we stay close to the shore where we might be able to find a hiding place quickly if we stumble across the Marine Guard. An hour later, Cam slows the Zode as the dark mass of Reynard Point looms over us. I'm aware of a sudden dryness in my mouth. "You're sure the Marine Guard isn't out here, waiting for someone to come and pick up the survivors?" "I can't be positive," Cam says with a shrug. "But Scarn said he and his men were going to lead the Marine Guard away from here so that we could try to help. Smugglers look after their own." I hate that Cam's been talking to the head of the most daring smuggling gang along this coast. He's risked getting sent away to one of those awful inland work camps, but I don't have time to yell at him right now. Seconds can make all the difference when a person is drowning. Quickly, I reach out to Mariah again. "Please start looking for the crew." I've practiced this drill with the pod many times. Their ability to echolocate makes dolphins amazing searchers. "How many were on board?" I think to ask Cam as Mariah and the dolphins go streaking away from us. "Scarn thought there should have been 4. The Marine Guard already caught the 2 who were unloading cargo in the sea cave," Robry chimes in. "Just how do you know that?" Cam frowns at Robry. I picked up a Marine Guard transmission on my shortwave after I heard you sneak out to get Nere. Cam's face tightens, but he doesn't say anything more. He knows he's in no position to give his brilliant little brother a tough time about listening to his homemade illegal radio. What we are doing right now is 10 times more illegal and 100 times more dangerous. Tell Mariah she's looking for 2 men then. I relay this message to Mariah. Shortly she reports back to me. We have found their boat. It is sitting upside down on the bottom below you, but we have not found the men yet. I glance at my mother's depth finder. Sure enough, I can see the outline of the sunken boat. It lies 40 feet of water right beneath us. I close my eyes and concentrate on the images the dolphins are relaying back to me. The dolphins have spread out all around Reynard's Point, I tell Cam, but they can't find the last 2 smugglers anywhere. Maybe the Marine Guard caught them all, he says bleakly. Wait, I think maybe Denzel's found a person, I say, sensing Denzel's rising excitement. Denzel is Sokia's older brother, but their personalities are totally different. Cool, calm, and dependable Denzel would only be feeling this excited if he actually found someone. There are 2 people inside the boat, Denzel reports to me, and their hearts still beat. If you want to find out what happens next in the Neptune Project, pick up a copy from your school library, local indie bookstore, or grab it via the link in the description box below if you can't find it those other places. Right now, I'm excited, though, not to be getting my hands on more books, but to be talking to the author, Polly Holyoke. So let's go join her in that conversation. All right, readers, we are so lucky because today we are joined by the author of the Neptune Project, Polly Holyoke. Polly, thank you so much for joining me today.
It is truly my pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, I've just got 5 quick questions for you, all about this story and your writing process and your life as an author. And the first one is that as readers and writers, we know that there's 2 parts to the story element of setting. There's the where and there's the when. So your story takes place in the ocean and in the future. And I'm curious how you decided upon using those 2 story elements for your setting.
Well, I guess I'm very worried about our future. That was the number 1 reason I really want kids to think about what their future is going to look like if we don't get climate change under control. And I was thinking of different ways to do this. I used to be a teacher and I wasn't in schools at that point. I thought, I really want to write a book that says something about what life could be like in 100 years or 200 years if we don't cool down the planet. So that was the first part of choosing the ocean as a setting. Then the second part was a little more practical. I knew I loved science fiction. I was thinking about writing a dystopian. And there were so many out when I was writing the Neptune Project, which would have been around 2011, 2012. I thought, what could make this one different? I thought, a fresh setting. I've never seen a dystopian set in the ocean. So and that's really true. There really hadn't been many, at least at that point. And so I think that really helps sell it. I think it's a good idea to think about the market. People always say, don't write to the market, but I also think you're foolish as an author and you want to sell a book if you don't at least be aware of trends in the market. So I knew dystopians were popular, but I also knew that there were an awful lot of them out there and I needed to find a way to make mine stand out. So by setting it in the ocean, I think that really helped. And I definitely got that feedback from agents and from publishers. We haven't seen this before.
That's awesome. Another practicality thing about that when I was thinking about writing my book in the ocean is that there's so much undiscovered territory in the ocean. We actually know more about our solar system than we do about the depths of the oceans on our own planet. So especially when writing science fiction, can maybe make some stuff up that people, it could be real, maybe, who knows? So okay, so leading from that, can you tell us what kind of research you had to do or you chose to do when writing this book, whether it's about the ocean or about the genetic mutation, what did you do? How did you learn all the things?
Well, the good news is I am a nerd and I like to learn new things. And boy, I really did have to learn new things because I never studied biology in high school. Somehow I skated around that and went straight to ecology. And then I didn't take biology in college. And then here I come up with a book that is, the whole premise of it is that these kids are genetically engineered to go live in the ocean because climate change is destroying the land. And their scientist parents are so worried about them, they decide to actually raise some children, create some children that could go through a kind of a transition and actually live in the ocean when they're old enough. So I had to learn a lot about DNA. I had to learn, yes, for a while I had uh, DNA for Dummies in my car. Genetics for Dummies, there actually is such a thing. One of those yellow books about genetics. I was the only mom in the carpool line with one of those. And then to talk to a lot of science teacher friends. I also had to study human biology because I wanted to make it as believable as possible. It's a fairly far out there premise that you could change human beings so their bodies could get oxygen from seawater. And so I wanted to make this as believable as possible. So I spent a lot of time researching biology, marine biology. I am, we'll get into scuba diving in a second, but yeah, there was just a ton of research. And I was so grateful for Google at the end because occasionally I'd come up with a species and I wasn't quite sure how to spell it. And I could just pop off my computer and look it up. And I think a book like the Neptune Project would have been very difficult to write if I hadn't had just like instant answers on a lot of questions that I had. But I know that the Neptune Project and its the later books in the series, the Neptune Challenge and the Neptune Promise, especially Challenge, they challenged copy editors in New York because somebody checks to make sure that you have spelled all these species correctly. And so somebody in New York had to spend a lot of time learning about fish species and marine mammal species on the West Coast when they were copy editing my books, because there's a lot in there. But I think it really paid off. I at one point had a library coordinator down around Austin, Texas, who just assumed I was a marine biologist.
Oh.
Job of faking people out because I really don't have a science background, but I'm certainly fascinated by the ideas of science. And I think that they can really make terrific books.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm sure those copy editors were like thrilled to have something new and different to do rather than just look for commas. So you mentioned briefly scuba diving. Have you spent a lot of time in the ocean and underwater so that like the landscapes you describe, does that come from real life experience?
Yes, and I think that's one of the things that really sets the Neptune Project apart from some other undersea books. There are a lot of mermaid books out there, and I have yet to read one, I have to say, where I think the person has actually spent a lot of time scuba diving. If you spend, my husband's a big diver. I don't absolutely love it, but I enjoy it. And we've done quite a bit of it. I think I'm up around 100 dives or something.
Wow.
Diving lots of different places. And one of the first things you realize is there's a lot of sound underwater. And a lot of times people don't describe that correctly. There's a lot of current, depending on where you are. You could be moving 2, 3, 4 to 5 knots an hour and get pulled away if you're not careful, because there's a lot of current. And then the other thing would be how clear the water is. There are days when you can't even see this close. Even some places that usually have really clear water, if there's a lot of current and the sand from the bottom is. And so those are all factors that really change your experience underwater. And again, I just think the mermaid books, it's always a clear day. You can always see everything. There's no current. And I'm thinking, I don't think you've done a lot of diving. And the sound is fascinating. There's all sorts of weird sounds. I love in the Neptune Project, one thing is if you pass a shrimp, kind of a school of shrimp, they make clicking sounds. They're really, and it's just kind of a cool thing, but I don't think you know that unless you're a marine biologist or you're a diver. So
yeah,
definitely had added some texture to it. The other thing I was able to describe is that the kelp beds, which are they're kind of like the forests of the ocean, and they really are beautiful and they're unusual, and you need to dive in one to really be able to describe them. And we had done that. We took a overnight dive boat trip out to the Channel Islands from the southern coast of Southern California, and then you dive all day long, and then you get back on the boat and you come back. And those kelp forests are just gorgeous. A really, really fascinating place to describe.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to have to YouTube that because I do not have access to California here from Wisconsin, but I definitely want to see that. Speaking of locations, this book, Neptune Project, is a part of my summer reading series all about oceans. And I would love to know, where is your favorite place to read in the summer? Where if you could camp out with your book, where would you park it?
Well, actually camping. Well, I would say that has changed over the years. So I was a big reader when I was a little kid, and my dad built me a series of fabulous tree houses. So the tree houses were the very best place to read. But then as I got older, it would just be outside someplace, maybe up on a tree. I seem to have a thing about trees, even up in a tree without a tree house. And then more recently, I would say it's just the out of doors. We do a lot of camping. I get to live in Colorado now, which is where I was raised. And we're going camping next weekend. Very excited about that. And I will be taking both a book and my computer, because I also like to write outside when I can, if I can arrange it so it's not too bright.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the lovely thing about a book, in some ways, maybe it doesn't matter so much about where you're reading, because the book is going to take you to another place, another reality. And so I found, and I think I was kind of a shy kid, and I know I have met a lot of shy kids through my author visits that tend to, their favorite place is hanging out in the library. But a book means that even in a crowded lunchroom or a noisy place or on a bus, you've got a friend and you've got a place that you can go and kind of get away from it all whenever you have a book. So it is nice to read in a perfect place, but the book becomes the place. So there you can also read in some imperfect places and still have a lovely time.
Yes, I love that. I love that. That's such a great answer. Speaking of when you were reading as a kid, what kinds of things did you like to read? Were you a fan of science fiction, and do you think that influenced what you write now?
I think it did. I mean, when I was really little, I had a grandmother that would come stay with us, my Goggie from Nebraska, and she would read great big thick books to me, and I would just sit there mesmerized. So she read Black Beauty,
Mm-hmm.
which for like a 6-year-old kid. And then we read The Jungle Book, which, by the way, is a terrific book if you want to read the really original Jungle Book and not watch
Okay.
and so she read these big classics to me. And then I started getting hooked on reading myself. And I think I loved like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I was a big fan of fantasy, but I also liked science fiction. I guess I like stories where brave kids get to make a difference. They get to be resilient. They get to find the answers. They get to solve the challenges. And usually there may be shy kids a little bit on the outside, but in the end, they really win out. So of course, I'm a Harry Potter fan.
Yeah.
Fiction, I think science fiction is just getting better and better. There's a lot of it out there. Yeah, and I think some of our best ideas, I think science fiction is a great way, or speculative fiction, as some people call it.
Yeah.
Great way to look at the future and explore some more serious themes.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to do your research. So I'm working on a big fantasy series. Just did first fast pages for something called Skywriters, which is a fantasy novel. And so maybe I didn't have to do quite as much technical research as I would on the Neptune Project, which is definitely science fiction. But there's still times I find myself like researching the right kind of bow and arrow. If you're writing Flying Horse, because my flying horses fight Chimera, which is like a 3-headed monster. And so
Yeah.
if you're going to shoot a bow and arrow from the back of a horse, what is really, you can't have a long bow.
No.
Up at your horse's wings. And so, I still find myself researching some really kind of funny and interesting things, even for fantasy. Biggest thing I'd say about fantasy is you need to be consistent in the rules. If you're going to have magic, you really have to lay out those rules, and then you have to abide by those rules, or you'll lose your reader and they won't believe you. And it's kind of the thing in science fiction. You have to create the rules of your world. They tend to be more science-based, but once again, whatever the technology is or the core premise, you have to stay consistent as a writer. So final thing I'd say about what I loved to read when I was younger, I definitely had a fondness for Dr. Dolittle. Those are also terrific books. Nobody reads the actual books anymore, but they're really a ton of fun. And I think that's when I got hooked on the idea, and the Jungle Book, that kids could talk to animals. And so really in the Neptune Project, guess what? Those dolphins are telepathic. Now they're partly that because I had to figure out a way to get it. How would my kids be able to communicate with the dolphin underwater? You can't really talk underwater because so telepathy became kind of it kind of made sense, although I still kind of laugh sometimes at the idea of telepathic dolphins. But then it kind of came up again in Skywriters. I really wanted my Skywriters. They're young people who are delivering the mail across a vast empire. So it's kind of like the Pony Express. With
cool. I love that.
With very young writers, because even the Pony Express had a lot of like 14, 15, and 16-year-olds. They needed really light young people, preferably orphans. And so I kind of stole that idea for this. But I like the idea of the writers being able to communicate with their flying horses. So I think some of that really goes back to Dr. Doodle, the fact that my 2 major series so far seem to have talking animals in them. And that was probably influenced by my childhood reading for sure.
That's awesome. I love that. This is my final question. What is your favorite part about being an author?
Oh, it depends on the day. Sometimes it's just the fact I get to go to work in my sweatpants.
Yes.
Just a really lovely thing. Because I used to be a school teacher and I had to get a little bit more dressed up for that. I think the chance to learn new things. The Neptune Project really changed my life in some ways because, again, I wasn't a super sciencey person, but to write that series well, I had to learn a ton about the ocean. And then I learned about how many problems there were in the ocean. And then I started getting invited to do a lot of STEM visits, science, technology, engineering, and math. And so it was wonderful that I had learned so much and then fun to be able to turn around and share it with kids. And then I'd be part of STEM fairs where I remember down in Florida, I was part of a STEM activity. And, the person down that way was rescuing turtles and another person had a device that was collecting plastic from the ocean floor. And so that chance to grow and learn new things is a wonderful part of being a writer. I'm just so excited about Skywriters and the fact that I'm about to be able to share, the story that's been in my head about these adventurous kids and particularly a shy girl. I'm going to show the art just very quickly. This is not the cover reveal. This is just preliminary art. But, I have another shy girl who gets to save the day as she and her flying horse take on these terrible chimera. And I've had so much fun with the story in my head, and it's about to be out there in the world. And if it's anything like the Neptune Project, I still get emails almost every day from kids around the world saying, I want to be a marine biologist when I grow up. Or most recently I had one that I am studying to be a marine biologist.
Oh.
And that's just fabulous to know that, a book could have that kind of impact. I also get lots of, this is the first big book I've ever read.
Mm-hmm.
That the Neptune Project is a good gateway read because it is a very exciting book. It's kind of a under the covers with a flashlight kind of read.
Yes.
And I'll have parents saying, our kid wouldn't stop reading at the dining room table, and we thought it was wonderful because Johnny's never read a big book before. So
yeah.
That if my book has turned some kids onto reading, my kid has turned some kids onto career choices. That's just a wow, and that makes me feel really good about what the Neptune series did. I don't know where Skywriters is going to go, but hopefully it will get some kids hooked on reading as well.
That's so great. I totally agree. I loved this book from start to finish. It is action-packed. It is adventurous. It's got so many things that would hook readers and pull them in. And so I hope that everybody listening enjoys it as much as I did and as much as Polly did while she was writing it. When can we expect that Skywriters book out? When will we get to take a peek at it for real?
Okay, so Skywriters should be out February of 2023, so next February. And then they actually bought the sequel to it, so they're be out maybe 6 months later. So I just want to say to all those librarians out there, I went to a lot of schools. I've done over 300 school visits because I was a school teacher, a middle school teacher originally. I give a really good school visit where it's educational, you actually learn some things. And Neptune Project made 5 state reading lists, and it won the state award. The kids voted it their favorite book in Florida. So this book the Neptune series is definitely sort of librarian approved. And the Association for the Advancement of Sciences voted it a good science-based read for kids. So lots of good credentials for the first series, and hopefully as Skywriters hits the world, it will get some nice reviews and some nice backing as well.
Awesome. Well, we will look forward to that. And thank you so much for your time today and for this amazing series. We can't wait to read the next one.
Thank you for giving me a chance to talk about it.
You're welcome. All right. We'll see you next time, readers. To continue reading the Neptune Project or the other books in the series, the Neptune Challenge and the Neptune Promise, check out a copy from your school library, purchase one from your local indie bookstore, or grab them via the links in the description box. And as always, be sure to check out the rest of the First Chapter Friday playlist. Maybe there's something there you haven't seen before and will be perfect for your next reading selection. Also, don't forget to stop back each week in June for another oceanic adventure story. Thanks so much for stopping by my channel and for listening to another First Chapter Friday Read Aloud. I hope to see you again next time.